Order. Order. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Andrew Little.
Mr Speaker, I move that all the words after that be deleted and replaced with "This House expressed no confidence in this National-led government because this is a government that has lost its moral compass, turned a blind eye to the deplorable actions of its MPs, that is fixated on selling off our state houses rather than building more homes, that is leading us into a war with no clear goals and no exit strategy, that has more Kiwis out of work and in poverty today than when it came to power, and that now has no greater ambition for New Zealand than changing our flag while leaving the real issues to fester." Mr Speaker, apparently that was the speech of our leader, of our nation. Apparently that was the sort of speech that we're all meant to be inspired by and rise up to and feel good about. But it was typical of this Prime Minister: nasty, pettifogging, no direction, nothing to offer. He's had 2 months on the beaches, and he's come back with nothing more to offer. Mr Speaker, before I go any further, I want to say how pleased I am to be back and to wish you, Mr Speaker, and all my colleagues a happy new year. It's been a great summer break. Some have had a good holiday. Todd Barclay went on a voyage of discovery. He discovered his electorate. Oh yes, there is a deep south after years of living in Wellington. Chris Bishop went kayaking in the Hutt River, and he wound up a bit like his political career, hard up on the rocks and no future. Amy Adams spent her holiday going around unpicking everything that Judith Collins didn't do. So it's been a very successful summer for some, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, this is a government that has mastered the art of something very, very special. The art, and it's Kirkaldi's and Staines, Smith and Coe would be very proud of them. This is a government of window dressing. This is a government that has mastered the art of window dressing. Giving the appearance of doing something, or giving the appearance of doing something even though what they're doing is something completely different, or repeatedly promising something that they never deliver on, like the fiscal surplus. How many years now, Mr English, have we promised the surplus and haven't delivered? How many more years are we to go? What is it now? 2017? Before the great fiscal managers of the national government produce a tangible result. That's the window dressing, Mr Speaker. That's the window dressing. Let's talk about housing and housing affordability. They talk about housing affordability. Their plan for housing affordability, get this, the magic plan for housing affordability is to sell state houses. Not a single extra house, but to sell state houses. And poor old Nick Smith, the Dr. Strangelove of the National Cabinet. Old Nick Smith, with his great plan to help housing, is going to reform the RMA in ways that we don't know about, because he can't tell us. Great talk about Section 6, great talk about Section 7, but we don't know what it is. What is the change? And if he does have change, what difference is it going to make to the people trying to get into a house? What difference is it going to make? Not a single difference. On that side of the house, not a single new house will be built because of their policies. Not a single new house. And Aucklanders, low-income, middle-income Aucklanders, struggling to get into a house. I heard a story this morning about a professional Auckland couple in their 30s, probably a little younger than Simon Bridges. They've done their OE, they've come back in their 30s, they've done very well in their OE because they could afford a deposit. That was one thing. No help from their parents, but they've now got a mortgage. They've got a modest Auckland house, 3-bedroom in Auckland, and you know what the mortgage is? $750,000. $750,000 for a first home buyer in Auckland, a young professional couple. That's what the national government has given us when it comes to housing. And they will talk about, oh, we want more houses. Oh, we're going to change the law to give us more housing. Just more window dressing. Just more window dressing from the Dr. Strangelove of the National Cabinet, Nick Smith. They have done nothing to add housing supply. Oh, that's not quite true. They had the special housing regions, special housing areas. 15 houses? 15. Am I overestimating it? 15? It might be 15 houses. Oh, that'll help. That'll help the poor old Aucklanders trying to get into their house. That'll help the Aucklanders who can no longer live near to where they work and have to live in the far north of Auckland, or even down to Hamilton now if they want to work in Auckland. That's the product of this government. Just more window dressing. No idea, no plan, no policy, no plan to do anything that's going to make a difference. And they say that selling 8,000 state houses will make the difference. How? And they say, and here's the other bit of window dressing, selling the 8,000 state houses, oh, they will all go to the community housing groups. There isn't a single community housing group that can afford 8,000 state houses. There isn't a single group. The community housing group cannot afford to buy out those 8,000 state houses. And John Key knows when he makes that promise, he is promising thousands and thousands of state houses to his mates, the property developers, because that's what this plan is about. Not about adding houses, not about making housing more affordable, not about helping those who cannot afford to buy or cannot afford to rent in the private rental market. He is about just flogging them all off, because that's what they did last time in government, and John Key is no different to the last lot. This mob just sell the state houses because that's what they do. Look after their mates. More window dressing. And then we come to unemployment. You know, the weird thing is this. You look around the rest of the world, Dr. Smith, you look around the rest of the world and unemployment is going down. Unemployment is coming down. We all got through the global financial crisis. We all got through it. And there are now, and at the start of the global financial crisis, we were #1 in the OECD in terms of our unemployment, lowest level of unemployment at the beginning of the global financial crisis. When I gave my State of the Nation speech 2 weeks ago, we were 9th. 2 weeks on, we're now 10th. We've slipped when it comes to employment. Unemployment in this country is going up. Unemployment in this country is going up because this government has no plan. They got Paula Bennett, and she'll massage the numbers and she'll shove people off the unemployment queue, but they've got no plan to create jobs, to add jobs, to reduce unemployment and to get people living in dignity. Why? Unemployment has gone up. Unemployment has gone up. In the last 3 months, another 3,000 people. You know, there's the spring and summer months when employers take people on. These are the good months, and unemployment has gone up by 3,000. That's why the Reserve Bank is holding interest rates, because they have no confidence in the future of this economy under this government. That is what is happening in this country. And that government, more window dressing. More window dressing. They'll spin the numbers. But the people who are living it know what it's like. They can't afford to make ends meet. They can't get a job. Their families are struggling. That's the New Zealand today for far too many New Zealanders. And that government doesn't care, because that's the nature of them. They'll just dress it up. They'll just make it up as they go along and hope that nobody notices. Well, I got news for John Key. People are noticing. People are noticing because they're hurting. Because when unemployment goes up at the prime months when employers take people on, then they know something is wrong. When people are struggling to make ends meet, they know there's something wrong. And there is. And there is. Have they given us anything? Is there a single measure they can point to that's going to add more jobs? You see Stephen Joyce sitting there, and his single biggest contribution as Minister in charge of the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment is 0-hour contracts. The nastiest, most brutal form of employment. It only ever happened under the time he was the minister. And even employers come to me and say, this is appalling. We can't have this. We shouldn't have it. 0-hour contracts, where people can be obliged to turn up to work and work not be given and no pay be given. What an appalling state of affairs that Stephen Joyce has led the employment market into. And people look at it and they are horrified. And their parents look at it and they are horrified. And their grandparents look at it and they're horrified. And employers come to me and say, how is it that a government could allow this to happen? The good, responsible employers who are looking for good, responsible people. So we would never touch 0-hour contracts, but those people down the road, they're doing it. And this government shows no interest in doing anything about it. Well, we will in Labor. And you will see our members' bill that will actually deal to that issue. This government's Stephen Joyce's single biggest contribution, 0-hour contracts. Oh, then there's Sky City. I'm glad you asked, Mrs. King, because the convention centre is very important. Remember how important that was to New Zealand? We must have a convention centre. We must have one, because the market for international conventions down at the bottom of the world is so big, apparently. They're falling over themselves to come down here. Never mind that Rotorua and Hamilton can't fill their convention centres, but pay that no mind, because the National Party knows best. Then they went off and did a deal. They went off and did a deal. Who did the deal? Who did the deal? Oh, John Key had a dinner with the Sky City executives. And here were all these other people lining up, all these other people thinking it was going to be a fair process, an open tender. They'd all have a chance to put up their proposal and say, yep, we can build a convention centre, but no, not under the national government, not under the masters of the universe. The masters of the universe, John Key and Stephen Joyce, oh dear, not them again. They got around the negotiating table, and what a deal. What a deal. The masters of the universe, John Key and Stephen Joyce, and they negotiated the deal of the century. Well, it sure was if you're Sky City. But for the taxpayer, what have they done? What have they given us? What have they given us? This is what Treasury said. This is what Treasury said when they looked at it. They said they have strong concerns that the private benefits to Sky City will exceed public benefits to New Zealanders. Whoops, whoops. The masters of the universe did such a fantastic deal, their own officials have trounced it. Their own officials have trounced it. And what do the Auditor General say about the process? About John Key's negotiating skills? About Stephen Joyce's negotiating manner? What did they say about that? They said, we do not consider that the evaluation process was transparent or even-handed. But that's all right, because when you're the Prime Minister promising the nation a free convention centre, there are no bounds. But whoops, it's not free. Oh no, the free convention centre is going to cost us. Will it be just a little bit? Oh, we could afford the odd million here and there, just a little bit, just to get it over the line. How much do they want to squeeze out of us? $140 million. $140 million for the casino, for the gambling experts in Auckland who've had this exclusive licence for so long. The deal that John Key and Stephen Joyce negotiated, the masters of the universe, the free convention centre is going to cost us $140 million. Wow. That's what they call economic development. That's what they call a plan for the future. Well, it's a plan for Sky City's future. They're doing very well. They've got the licence for 2048, and mark my words, that mob won't walk away from it. They've put too much into it. There is too much at stake. There is too much at stake. Well, that's the economic issues. What about standards of government? What about the promise in 2008 that the government I lead will be a government of good standards, and their chance to do something, their chance to demonstrate that they actually are a party of standards in government? They were confronted with it at the end of last year. One of their MPs under a police investigation.
Order.
One of their MPs under a police investigation.
Order.
That's on the record.
Order. I invite members throughout the state to be very careful. We know that there was a court case, and we know that all details were suppressed. There was a standing order. There was a standing order 115, which if any member thinks I should consider this matter differently, I invite them to use that standing order and write to me. At this stage, no member has done so. I invite Mr Little to continue.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I understand and appreciate the caution you are expressing, and I make no reference at all, make no comment beyond the fact that is on the record that an MP was under a police investigation. And he's not the first. But that government well knows, because they have drawn the attention of the public to other MPs under a police investigation, and a police investigation that led to no outcome at all. But here's the point. We had an MP under investigation who was then allowed by this government to chair the parliamentary committee that provides oversight.
Order. I have given a ruling that I had given considerable consideration to. If the member continues in this vein, I will have no choice but to terminate his speech. Now, I have given a ruling whereby we acknowledge there is a court case. of which all details were suppressed. Order! And this is a time when this Parliament has a responsibility, a duty, to respect the jurisdiction of a court, and I expect that to occur today. I invite Mr Little to continue.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And I absolutely understand the principle of comity between Parliament and other branches of government. That is absolutely crucial. And I have made no reference to any court process. I just want that to be on the record. None whatsoever. But standards of public life are important. Standards of public life are important. And the way we, as MPs in this House, conduct ourselves is important. And whether or not we are party to a conflict of interest, and whether or not our parties and our party leaders know we are subject to a conflict of interest, that is important to every citizen in New Zealand. And every single one of us is required to exercise proper and appropriate standards of conduct, including when we are in conflicts of interest, to declare that and act appropriately. And if our leaders know that we are in a conflict of interest, it is incumbent on the leader to act appropriately and properly. And I just say this to Michael Woodhouse and Anne Tolley: the truth will set you free. And we will come back to this, and the truth will set you free. I want to go on to this very important issue that the Prime Minister has correctly raised, although in rather an unfortunate manner, and that is the challenge that the world faces in dealing with an outfit like Islamic State, or ISIS as it is known. And it is brutal, and it is horrific, and it's ugly, and it is revolting, and it has appalled every single citizen who has seen it. Every person who respects democracy is appalled by it. And the challenge is this: what, after 10 years of training of the Iraqi army by the best trained, best equipped, best resourced army in the world, what is it that we can do now that is going to make a difference? What is it we do after $25 billion US of training for the Iraqi army that our people and those who they are invited to join around the world might do? Let us not be panicked. Let us not be panicked into a response to deal with the most brutal and the worst outfit that does not operate to any rules, does not operate with any borders, does not observe any conventions, but is nasty and brutal. Japan tried it, dealt with them, and their hostages were killed brutally. Jordan tried it to deal with them, and their pilot was brutally killed in the ugliest, most appalling fashion. What is it we are going to do? What is the mission, Mr. Key? What are you asking New Zealanders to agree to put our people in harm's way that is going to make the difference? That's the question. And New Zealanders are sensible, practical people. And we all see it. And we all feel the urge to do something. But we want to know that what we do is going to make a difference. That's the challenge that the world faces. Not to rush in there, hoping that we might find out what to do when we get up there, but to know what it is before we get there. And to understand that the most and the only effective measure so far has been airstrikes by other forces, something we cannot do. Labor's focus is very clear. We are about an economy that's going to generate jobs, real jobs, good jobs, jobs that mean good living standards and good incomes for people. And the right laughs at us, or they laugh at us, because they don't care about the people who are struggling to get jobs at the moment. They don't care about those who are on the unemployment queue because it's going up, because this government does nothing about it. And we will take that challenge on. And we will work with the sector that's generating the most jobs at the moment, the small business sector, the most ignored business sector in the country. And it's funny how you talk to them and they say, this government has done nothing. What do they want? They want access to easy, readily available education, stuff that tells them how to get started, what to do. And for those who have been in business for a while and are wondering how to take advantage of better economic conditions and how to expand, they want some assistance to do that, readily accessible. And those dealing with government agencies, the multitude of government agencies, they want to know how to do that efficiently, to have one point of contact to do it. It's all possible, it's all achievable. This government doesn't care. They don't care about the small business sector because that's not where their mates and their donations come from. That's the truth of it. And we will be a party that's serious about housing. about affordable housing, about adding to housing, 10,000 houses a year over 10 years. That's our policy, that's our measure, that'll make a difference. And that young professional couple in Auckland who are now saddled with a $750,000 mortgage, terrified if either of them lose their job, because that's it, that's their life gone. No one else will be put in that position. And we will address the single biggest issue that New Zealanders are concerned about, the growing inequality. If the Prime Minister wants to talk about separatism, I'll talk about it to him. I'll talk about those who are being kicked out of the housing market, obstructed, and those who are living in the palatial residences. That's the separatism I'm concerned about. Those whose incomes are getting less, and those who are getting stratospheric. That's the separatism I'm concerned about, not the stuff that the Prime Minister is concerned about. Mr. Speaker, New Zealand deserves better. Mr. Speaker, New Zealand deserves leadership, a real leader, prepared to confront the real issues, prepared to deal with the issues that New Zealanders have with respect and with dignity, and to deal with them in a way that's going to make a difference, generate jobs and give dignity to people who need it most. That's the challenge facing New Zealand, not what this government's talking about, fiddling and faddling and more window dressing, which is what we've got under this mob.
Order. The question is the amendment be agreed to. Dr. Russell Norman.
Mr. Speaker,